I guarantee that you absolutely can teach your dog perfect recall if you follow the steps I'm going to outline in this video. Now, as a canine behaviourist, I help people with a whole plethora of different problem behaviours that they're struggling with their dogs. And one of the most common things that people look to me for help with is their dogs don't listen when they're out. Their dogs don't come back to them when called. Their dogs don't have a good recall, and that might be getting them in serious trouble all the way through to running in front of traffic or finding themselves in fights, through to minor inconveniences of just finding it more difficult to get their lead back on when you take them for a little run at the park. Now, when clients usually come to me with this problem, this is the exact process that we take to help them make the improvements that they're looking for. First of all, we do a deep diagnosis on the dog, and we're looking at testing a variety of different things, including characteristics, including genetics, including temperament, including emotional states. But for me, when it comes to recall, I'm really interested in the dog's motivation. What is it that the dog's trying to achieve? What is it that the dog loves? And this is usually at the root cause of problems with recall, because something that we refer to as competing motivators. Usually, dogs that come to me with bad recall have a recall command. They know what it is that is expecting of them when the owners are calling them back, but they're choosing to ignore it, even if the owner has lots of treats that they want to give the dog if they come back to them when asked. So why is it that the dog is choosing to ignore them? That's because the scales of motivation are not in the right side of the owner. The other thing is more interesting to the dog than the owner is. This might be chasing that squirrel. This might be playing with that other dog. This might be swimming. This might be sniffing around those trees. You name it, that could be more interesting than you with your treats. To achieve perfect recall, we need to tip those scales over. And to do that, we can do one of two things. We decrease the motivation of the other thing, or we increase the motivation of us, and ideally, we want to be able to achieve both. But before we can do this, I usually take another big step back and accept that the current recall command that owner is using is probably broken. If you have got hundreds, if not thousands of repetitions of calling your dog's name and come, and they've not listened and they've not listened and they've not listened, it's usually a good idea to scrap that command and start with something new. For me, that is usually a whistle command. So the first step will be teaching recall with a whistle in a low distraction environment where these competing motivators aren't there at all. That means that we can make sure that we understand that the dog knows when it hears this whistle, I want it to come back to me. And we make sure that we set the dog up for success by utilizing things like low distraction environments and long lines. Then we can move into this game of motivation, and we have got dozens of different games that we play with the dog because the root cause is that we want coming back to us to equal awesome. We don't want to use heavy punishment. We don't want to make the dog fearful of coming back to us. We want them to understand that they need to come back to us, but coming back to us is always awesome. So we start with low-level distraction games, and we build those games up to be more and more fun as the distraction levels get greater and greater, whilst remaining setting them up for success with, again, using things like a long line. And with the vast majority of dogs, we can make huge progress with that alone. However, there are some dogs that we can never increase our motivation enough to tip those scales in our favor. If that's the case, there are more advanced strategies, but that definitely requires working with a trained professional that's experienced with those kinds of methods in person, the kind of thing that we do here at my training center. But even if we want to start looking at some of those methods, we have to start with this process first. So if you're struggling with recall with your dog, make sure that they're the things that you're working on. We will never be able to achieve perfect recall without that foundation in place first. So if you like this video, if you want more videos like this, or you'd like me to go into more details of both sides of that scale, let me know, subscribe, and we'll see you in a video soon.